feeling. So, what are we doing today?
MTN. Live on Joy 99.7 FM, this is the Midday News. The news is also live on Love 99.5 FM in Kumasi, affiliates across Ghana's 16 regions. We're on Radio Justice in Tamale, Fafa Radio in Georgia, Jata FM in Karaga, Dreams FM in Bogatanga. We are live on Twitter Spaces. We're on Facebook and myjoyonline.com. The Midday News is sponsored by Duraplus Ghana Limited, producers of quality PVC pipes and water tank. Where Duraplus goes, water flows. This afternoon, all clear as the NDC minority backs the appointment of committee's recommendation for the approval of the nomination of Gertrude Tokonu as Chief Justice.
We, the members of the Appointments Committee representing the National Democratic Congress, will not withhold our approval of the Chief Justice nominee by consensus.
We're live in Parliament as the House gets set to debate the report. Also, no cattle, goats, sheep, pigs and dogs from Upper East. The latest directive by the Regional Security Council to contain the outbreak of anthrax disease, which has already claimed one life.
And we are not allowing any animals from there because, there are various markets. Should be arrested and prosecuted because we put out the notice and it's there.
We'll hear from the Upper East Regional Minister and butchers on the impact on their business.
Supply we had Sunday, everything is running up. It's finishing because a day in Turaku alone, we kill more than 400 to 500 cattle.
They even told us that we shouldn't. A cow from that place shouldn't come to town, Bolaga here.
Also this afternoon, impending power crisis as independent power producers maintain they will not agree to restructure debts and will shut down plants in 3 weeks unless government meets their demands.
Let everyone join hands to impress on government to make the monies available to us to keep our lights on. That is the June 30th. It's still standing. We cannot overstretch ourselves. We cannot stretch ourselves beyond June 30th.
But the ECG remains confident it will reach an agreement. We have sports.
Ghana's Black Bombers face a major preparation challenge with 4 days remaining to the African Boxing Championship.
And also, RTI Commission fines Ghana Police Service 100,000 cedis for failing to provide information on police killings and brutality against 31 persons between 2011 and 2018. There's more as the Commission gives the police 14 days to provide the information or risk paying 10% additional penalty on the fine. Details of that and later, days after the passing of an illustrious writer, Amma Ata Edu. We hear extracts from her books, Diplomatic Pounds.
Whoever first said nowhere cool knew exactly what they were talking about, and cold ain't cool.
That and more in this afternoon's edition of the Midday News. I am Emefa Apau. Many thanks for staying on for details. This is your home of independent, fearless and credible journalism. This is Joy News. Now, this afternoon, the Appointments Committee of Parliament is speaking with one voice in their recommendation to the House to approve the nomination of Gertrude Tokonu as Chief Justice. The minority had earlier withheld their position on the approval of the nominee, awaiting the full judgment of the Supreme Court ruling on NDC's James Jachikwesin case. But addressing a news conference a while ago, member of the committee, Mahama Ayariga, said though the caucus rejects some aspects of the ruling, they will back the approval.
If even we admit that there should be some housekeeping matters at the point of filing nomination papers, that should be the appropriate province of legislation and not judicial enactment. What they did was to enact laws, the Supreme Court, not to interpret the text of the Constitution of Ghana. James Jachikwesin is gearing up to contest the by-election in Asin North, which has been brought about by the Supreme Court's decision. In that regard, we, the members of the Appointments Committee representing the National Democratic Congress, NDC, will not withhold our approval of the Chief Justice nominee by consensus. We will not withhold our approval of her by consensus. Her CV reveals a person of considerable experience, having served as a judge from the High Court to the Court of Appeal and ultimately at the Supreme Court. Women who have acquitted themselves should be given opportunities to occupy key national offices. Even as we disagree with her jurisprudence, we find her qualified to occupy the high office of Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana.
Well, the minority has concerns about portions of the Supreme Court's judgment in the James Jachikwason case, insisting the Apex Court attempted to rewrite the Constitution instead of interpreting same.
Fidelity to the text of the Constitution of Ghana would have dictated that the controlling provisions in the resolution of the dispute are the words qualified to be a member of parliament, quote and unquote. Disappointingly, a professed textualist like our CJ nominee abandoned the text and chose to read into the text of the Constitution a replacement text, quote, qualified to file nomination papers to contest for election as a member of parliament. She read this into the Constitution, whilst the Constitution was dealing with qualified to be a member of parliament. But what she was busy doing in the reasoning is to read the Constitution as saying qualified to file nomination papers to contest for election as a member of parliament. This is exactly why the NDC minority members of parliament on the appointments committee wanted to wait for the reasoning to see if the Chief Justice nominee, Justice Gertrude Araba Esaba Tokono, would be true to her publicly professed textualist approach to constitutional interpretation.
Well, let me take you live to Parliament now, and Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Kweku Asante joins us. Kweku, let's talk about the Appointments Committee's report. Has it been laid?
The House has not started sitting yet, but if you look at the business statement report, which we have just secured copies of, it appears that will be the major business for today. And as soon as the Speaker enters the chamber, governs the House in session, the Deputy Speaker may be called upon to lay the committee's report. The standing orders will be abridged. Standing order provisions having to do with 48 hours rules, among others, will all now be shelved for the report to be dealt with today, given that the coast is now clear on both sides for them to go ahead and approve her. We haven't seen the report yet, but from every indication that we have seen so far in the House, from what Mahama Yarga and the minority have just stated, and also a copy of the business statement report, it appears that will be the major business for today.
But I'm sure you've been finding out from both sides of the House. Are they all on one page on the House side, stepping its own provisions and approving the nominee today?
That's exactly the sense we are getting. Indeed, in the next few minutes, we expect that the majority leader, Chairman Sabons, will also be addressing the news conference on this same matter to try and see how both sides can come together and move this business agenda through. It appears there's not so much controversy in terms of how to go ahead with it. And as soon as the majority leader is able to give us an indication of how this business will be done, then the Speaker of Parliament will get in, and then the House will now consider this report from the Appointment Committee.
Well, being the very first meeting for this particular session, I'm sure that you've been finding out what else we're expecting to happen throughout this particular meeting.
So a number of key issues are expected to happen. The Majority Chief Whip, Frank Anodampa, has already indicated on social media that this government is going to put in a number of new financial bills. Don't forget that just before Parliament went on break, it approved some new taxes. It appears some new taxes are going to come, some new financial bills, some going to amend previous ones. And so all these issues are not going to be dealt with. From today, these new taxes will be laid for the House to take care of it before it goes on break, expected to be around the end of July or early August.
That's our Parliamentary Affairs correspondent, Kweku Asante there. Thank you so much for joining us. As and when we get more from Parliament, we'll take you there. But the outbreak of anthrax in part of the Upper East region has compelled the Regional Security Council to take strong steps to contain it, including an absolute ban on the transit, sale and eating of ruminants from the region's eastern corridor. It comes after one person died from the infection and others being treated. Some animals have also died in the process. According to an emergency meeting conducted yesterday, no animals should be moved from the impacted regions, and failing to follow the prohibition will result in prosecution. We'll get to hear from the regional minister shortly, but first let's get more information about their directives and from that particular statement that has been issued. Mami Sinyameche Thompson, my colleague, has details, joins me in studio with more. What else is in the statement, Mami?
So, MFR, the ban started yesterday, and according to the statement, it is placed on the movement of all small ruminants, that sheep, goats, pigs, cattle, and dogs from the eastern corridor of the region, including the Boku municipality, Boku West, Pusiga, Garu, Tempani, and Binduri districts, and also the MCEs, DCEs have been to ensure that the slaughtering, sale, and consumption of the cattle, sheep, goats, and dogs are banned for a period of 1 month, effective from yesterday. Also, veterinary officers have been directed to commence the vaccination of the following categories of animals that are cattle, dogs, sheep, and goats. And owners of animals are to make their animals available for the vaccination at their respective places of residence, and the vaccination is free. And this has been signed by the regional minister.
Okay, and thankfully we've been hearing from the regional minister himself, Stephen Yakubu. He says the guidelines are intended to preserve human and animal life. He also mentions that animal immunization has begun.
I can tell you that it's contained now because of the quick active actions that we are taking. And we are not allowing any animals from there because, there are various markets. They have tamale markets that sometimes they take distance to the other markets, and we have banned movement of these so that it doesn't spread even in the region and also in the country. So you see that what we have done, it is only happening within the Binduri district, but you see that we've banned all the other 5 municipalities, 1 municipality, and then the other districts because they're close by into the center, and then also if I talk of the center, the Bolgatanga area, and also the Western Center, that is where the Navrongo area. We have a border with Northeast. So we are also informing them to be very vigilant.
And what happens if anybody flouts this directive?
He'll be arrested and prosecuted because we put out the notice and it's there. And that is why we want to sensitize everybody to understand the risk of eating anything like that. So if it's out there and you flout the law, you'll be arrested and prosecuted. That's what we'll do.
That's the Upper East Regional Minister Stephen Yakubu there speaking to Mami Senior Mitchell Thompson. Well, this will undoubtedly have an influence on the cattle market, particularly those that acquire their supply from there. Sakura and Adongo works as butchers in Bolgatanga Slaughterhouse.
Environmental people came and educated us concerning about those things. They even told us that we shouldn't, a cow from that place shouldn't come to town, Bolga here. So we don't buy cattle from those apart from within the communities. We can contain it in Bolga here. It's better.
But we know about it. But the veterinary people too are there. So they told us, cow from that side, they will not allow for a cow to enter here. From within Bolga villages, Gampibugo, Sirko, just within the villages around town.
Now, let me take you to Tulaku. It's the livestock headquarters here in Tema and also serves part of Accra, the eastern region and the Volta region. Butchers believe it will significantly influence sales, especially with its celebrations just around the corner. Musa Abdullahi Mohammed is a butcher there.
It wouldn't be enough. The supply we had Sunday, everything is running up. It's finishing. Because a day in Tulaku alone, we kill more than 400 to 500 cattle a day. So you can see one butcher can slaughter 10 cows, another butcher can slaughter 15 cows. And I'm not talking about the ones they send to Medina, the one they send to Accra, part of Accra also slaughter. If the animals don't come in, it will affect the Salah celebration, especially the rams and the cattle. Because mostly when it is Salah, we normally sacrifice more rams and then cattle. Each individual is supposed to buy an animal, 1 or 2 or 3, each person. Because if you have your mother who is still alive and it's a big Salah, definitely you have to buy a ram for your mother or your father and buy a ram for yourself.
Now, let's turn our attention to energy-related matters. And the Chamber of Independent Power Producers, IPP, say its members will shut down their plants in 3 weeks unless government meets their demands. They are owed at least $1.4 billion, and government has so far been working around the clock to get them to agree to have these debts restructured. CEO of the Chamber, Elik Blim Afertogbo, says members are struggling to keep their businesses afloat.
Our conditions or severity of our situation is something that cannot be negotiated. We have done everything possible to keep to manage the situation, but it has gone beyond our control. So really nothing has changed. Our ultimatum to government, that is the June 30th, is still standing. We cannot overstretch ourselves. We cannot stretch ourselves beyond June 30th.
If the payments are not made available, what then is likely to happen?
We have overstretched ourselves. What we are able to do is what can carry us to the end of June and cannot go beyond. So let me say the position stands. There is nothing we could do about it. We have cases in the past whereby anytime we are pressed with time, we approach government in this manner. Government will come in and make some small payment to us. Then we'll go back and say that, oh, let's keep the faith. But I think this case, we have serious cases in hand. Most of our IPPs have defaulted in their loan repayment, their creditors here and there. Pursuing them, the kind of facilities we have with these private lenders, if it is about 1 month to the time, you will start receiving reminders that failure to pay your loan or your loan on due dates, these are the penal clauses for what we have signed for, which
That's the CEO of the Chamber of Independent Power Producers, Elik Blim Apetogbo. Well, the IMF has asked government to undertake an audit of the power plants to ensure that government is actually paying the right amount. Mr. Apetogbo suspects it's a strategy to delay payment.
Oh, we are open to any kind of audit. I can tell you that these things has happened time and again. Auditing of our invoices, let me tell you, it's just a strategy to buy time, but all the same, they have every right to do so. But the issue is that the consequences of any further delay cannot be averted if that is a strategy to delay payment to us.
Oh, you feel this is part of the strategy to delay payment and that your 30th June deadline may not be met? You feel that's what government is doing?
Exactly.
Now, the Electricity Company of Ghana is also leading the talks with the IPPs. Managing Director Samuel Dubik Mahama insists an agreement will be reached.
We've had very, very productive discussions and they would not go off, with all confidence.
So we should ignore all this, we'll go off.
So I would say ignore, because we do owe them. So I would say ignore, but what I'll say is that the conversations are far advanced to avert something like this. And so I can say with all confidence that it won't come to that.
So what have you agreed on currently?
So, as I said earlier, there are a few NDAs in place, but let me give you a small whole. We are trying to find a way to make sure that the money expected of us to pay is reasonable and is within our reach. Because what IMF is saying that ring-fence legacy debt, but you have to stay current. If those excess and idle capacity charges are still existent, we cannot be current.
We can hear from a former chief executive of the Volta River Authority, Dr. Charles Rekubrobe, who wants the sector depoliticized.
It is so politicized. One of the first things I would say is that going forward, we should actually depoliticize demand provision, the signing of PPAs, etc., etc. Years ago, when the DRA was a power generator and therefore was responsible for demand and forecasting and supply, they did the negotiations with IPPs, etc., and they actually did this on a tender basis to ensure that whoever we contracted provided us with the best possible pricing. And more importantly, they looked into the future to ensure that we did the contracting 5, 6, 7 years ahead, so we didn't run into emergency situations.
That's former CEO of VRA, Dr. Charles Rekubrobe. Now, the Right to Information, that's the RTI Commission, has fined the Ghana Police Service 100,000 cedis for failing to provide information on the alleged police murder of 11 civilians and brutalities against 20 other persons. The information requested by the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative Africa sought updates on investigations regarding the 31 cases, that's between 2011 and 2018. But in a 10-page ruling by the RTI Commission, the Commission notes that the Ghana Police Service deliberately refused to respond to all letters written to it through the IGP since June 2022. My colleague James Aveji has a copy of that RTI ruling, Commission ruling, and joins us in studio with details. Let's talk about the pronouncement of the Commission on the matter.
Yes, so the Commission actually come to the resolution that the police has have deliberately refused to respond to all 3 letters written to them on different occasions, and so it has ruled that the Ghana Police Service actually pay 100,000 Ghana cedis for failure to provide the information. They also noted that in the next 14 days, if they refuse to provide the information or refuse to pay the 100,000 Ghana cedis, they will pay a defaulting penalty of 10% on the 100,000 Ghana cedis.
Thank you very much, James Aveji there, taking us on a quick break here on the Midday News. We are live on Joy 99.7 FM here in Accra. In Kumasi, we are on Love 99.5 FM and a number of affiliates across Ghana's 16 regions, including Jata FM in Karaga, Dreams FM in Bogatanga. We're on Twitter Spaces, we're on Facebook and myjoyonline.com. And the Midday News is proudly sponsored by Duraplus Ghana Limited, producers of quality PVC pipes and water tank, where Duraplus goes, water flows. The NDC minority on the appointments committee have given the all clear in terms of their recommendation for the approval of the nomination of Gertrude Tokonu as Chief Justice. When we return, we go for sport, and then it's time for the National Science and Maths Quiz. And GSTS faces an uphill opposition against St. John's in a heated battle for a spot in the Nationals in the first contest in the Western region.
Name the law that governs the interaction between 2 states. Yes. Close law. That is correct.
And then much later, days after the passing of an illustrious writer, Amma Ata Edu, here, extracts from her book, Diplomatic Pounds.
Whoever first said nowhere cool knew exactly what they were talking about, and cold ain't cool.
Many thanks for sticking with us. It's the Midday News, time for sports.
Yep. For now, the Black Bombers head coach Ofori Asare wants a residential camp for his team. With only 4 days remaining to a major tournament, the Ghanaian side are expected to participate in the African Boxing Championship in Cameroon from June 10. Now, due to lack of resources, the boxers have resorted to a non-residential training. Coach Asare is worried about the situation.
I want us to be in camp, preparing for the African Games, especially. The GBF or the Boxing Federation is doing marvelously well, even though it is not a campaign, a residential campaign, non-residential campaign. So I wish we had...
Residents there are unhappy with the pace of work and the construction of roads in the area. The concerned residents claim the speed of work experienced ahead of the recent by-election has slowed down. They also doubt the quality of the work, considering the project lacks a drainage system. There's more in this report by my colleague Nana Boachi Dankwayadon.
Construction of roads in the Kumeu constituency took off after the death of the Member of Parliament, Philip Basua. The timing of the development was questioned by both residents and a section of Ghanaians, claiming the swiftness was due to the impending by-elections, an assertion debunked by the Road Ministry.
No. By-election will not move our government, our party to go and start development project. Procurement will take not less than 6 to 8 weeks to do. So the fact that you have a contract, there's a contractor, and the contract has been signed and all, within these 2.5 weeks means that it has been done already.
Though the contractor is on site, some road users claim the work is progressing at a snail pace compared to the speed of work ahead of the by-elections.
The pace of work here has slowed significantly. How the work is progressing is nothing compared to when all public officials assembled here. No bridge and segmented outcomes.
At the same time, no bridge.
From here to Bodumase has been tarred, but the next town has been neglected. From Fijase to the Zongo has been tarred, but not the next town. We don't understand.
as a quine or moyano, peace, or moya town to town, okra, muntiminia, and we town.
All appears the work is being done in fragments. They don't even end a place before they move to the next.
Well, President Akufo-Addo has meanwhile assured that ongoing works in the Kumewu Township will continue, and he's been speaking at a meeting with the newly elected Member of Parliament for the area.
No, the people who have come to do the work, they will stay and finish the work before they move. It cannot be a question that it was just an election gimmick. That would not be in my taste and would not be correct at all. Ms. Enim, you have a big responsibility. Kumewu is a very important constituency, one of the leading constituencies in Ashanti. So now you are their mouthpiece, their representative. You have to deliver. But we believe you can.
Well, still on roads here in the Greater Accra region, residents, motorists and business owners living along the Dawenya to Kpong barrier stretch of the main Accra-Plau Road are calling for a speedy completion of road expansion works to end years of the heavy traffic situation. My colleague Carlos Caloni has been to the area. He tells the story.
It's 15 minutes past 6 a.m. Monday morning here on the Dawenya Road, and there's already a gridlock on the stretch spanning over 5 kilometers from Kumbaria all the way to the Dawenya Township.
As part of measures aimed at reducing traffic congestion on the Dawenya Road, the government signed a $100 million contract with a UK-based construction firm, BHM, on 25th September 2020 for the design and construction of 17 kilometers long Tema Aflau Phase 1 project. Expected to be completed within 18 months, residents and motorists along the stretch say the slow pace of work 1 year on has worsened the traffic situation, which is negatively impacting their health and productivity.
They will do small and they will stop. We don't understand what is going on.
If you sit for a long time, your spinal cord is have a problem. So for health aspect is there, and you are also wasting a lot of fuel.
And that's Carlos Caloni's report. And the National Science and Maths Quiz is here. And I'll take you to the Western region, and this time Ghana Secondary Technical School, GSTS, and St. John's School engage in a fiercely contested battle for a coveted spot in the Nationals. Former champions GSTS determined to redeem themselves after a shocking defeat in the previous qualifiers. Well, my colleague Michael Ashali is there for us from Takrady. He gives us all the rundown. Michael, what are we missing?
So until a few minutes ago, the race still remained undecided between GSTS and St. John's, but just now, thankfully, the contest ended, and St. John's, for the first time in 2 years, will be going to the Nationals. They managed to get 46 points, and St. John's, who gave them a very fierce battle, came through with 41 points. That is because they lost just 2 questions in the final round there. So that is how it's going to happen. St. John's will get a spot in the Nationals. MFR.
Thank you so much. That's Michael Papani Ashale reporting from the Western region for the National Science and Maths Quiz. And unfortunately, the last day of May this year was colored with grief following the demise of one of Africa's illustrious writers and activist, Ama Ataidu. Born on 23rd March 1942, Ama Ataidu was known for her impactful publications and advocacies on women empowerment. Days after her demise, tribute we know have been pouring in and still pouring in across the globe, eulogizing her gallant contributions to the world of literature. Well, in today's edition of Joy News Remembrance Series, we bring you excerpts from her book, Diplomatic Pounds, read by veteran Ghanaian actor, culture activist and filmmaker Akofa Ejiani.
This is from Ama Ataidu's Diplomatic Pounds and Other Stories. And here's an excerpt from New Lesson. That's why I'm actively wishing him ill with a nicely rounded female kiss, that he falls hopelessly in love with that young woman, whoever she is. That would complicate things very nicely for him, wouldn't it? And in the meantime, what I've got to admit is that whoever first said nowhere cool knew exactly what they were talking about. After all, much of the time, most of the places where we are likely to live on this earth are either hot, very hot, or cold, very cold, and cold and cool.
And nowhere, definitely. Cool. And that's how we end today's edition of the Midday News live on Joy 99.7 FM. There's more when you log on to myjoyonline.com. We won't withhold our approval of Chief Justice nominee Minority Backs Getro Tokono. That and more on myjoyonline.com. I am Emefa Apau. Many thanks for your company. Living Word